Swimming with the grandkids.
Amazing. Scano, nice to see everyone today. It's a beautiful day. It sounds like many people are gathering, and I'm honored right now to be sitting in the middle of our healing garden here in Milton. And we were just talking about how this came to be. And I was just saying to our guests today, Beverly, Darlene, and Roberta, that, you know, our ancestors are really, really working hard for us to listen. They're creating some amazing magic and collaboration opportunities. And I'm just really grateful to be in this position to be able to support the voices of my Indigenous relatives. And so this is the garden at Country Heritage Park. And we started this initiative actually last year in ceremony with the grandmothers in Milton as well at Crawford Lake. We did a ceremony, and our idea was to come up with something that would really resonate with Indigenous people, and creating a living monument so that people can actually visit and you know, heal and gather. And so I began conversations with Roberta and the survivors from the Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School. And what I learned was that, you know, for many years, I think it was like, what, 10 years, Roberta, maybe a bit longer, you've had this vision and dream to have a park on the grounds of where the mush hole was. And so, you know, as grandmother's voice, we've become just, you know, Indigenous people really wanting to make change in society for Indigenous people. And so this living monument and our center that's here in Milton off Tremaine and the 401 has really become a place for gathering and for the urban Indigenous people to connect.
You faded out.
Does she stop? Why she froze?
You're frozen.
Are you going to go up to the Woodland Cultural Center, Roberta?
Yeah.
If that happens again, please jump in, ladies. Sorry about that connection. I'm not sure if you all got disconnected, but we did for a minute. So I just say that, you know, we're all moving towards healing, and there are a lot of things going on in our communities today, and there is an event
fading out.
Brantford happening, and so maybe we'll get the conversation happening right now. Are you ladies there?
You're kind of cutting in and out, though.
Yeah, well, you know, it's busy out here. So, you know, I just did a little, I stayed on. I don't know if everybody caught it, but if you just want to talk again about, briefly about the walk that's happening, the Unity Walk in Brantford to the Woodland Cultural Center, and then you can start your talk. I'm going to exit right now, but please, if you need something to do today, you're more than welcome to join us at the center at Country Heritage Park. We're gathered on the 80 acres out here to show our support.
Very good.
Go ahead, ladies. Go ahead, Roberta. Take it away.
Well, I would let Darlene go, only because I want her to talk about the Unity Walk, because I haven't had much information on it. So if you can just address that, Darlene, that would be helpful for even me.
Well, I just know even from the meeting yesterday that they're having the walk at 12, but they're meeting up at the Civic Center downtown Brantford next to the casino. And they're going to have, I think they're going to have Old Mush singing to start it off. And then they're going to walk at 12 to the Woodland Cultural Center. And I'm not sure the events that are going to be happening at the Cultural Center, but there's going to be something happening there also. And I was just telling Bev, I said, yesterday or even a couple days ago, people were trying to get the orange shirts. And they said whenever a business would get the shirts, they'd be gone like in about 40 minutes. So a lot of people haven't had luck in getting the shirts if they wanted to go on the walk. But I think there's so many people that have had the orange shirts from before that people probably could access them from somebody else if they want to go on the walk. I have this shirt. It was done by Grand River Clothing, and it says on this side, it has in the oranges, bring them home. So this one is more for talking about the children that were being found, or the grave sites that are being found. So
I know that
in that meeting, what was happening at the Woodland Cultural. Did you hear you?
I couldn't hear you, Darlene. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, did they tell you what was happening at the Woodland Cultural Center
Yesterday?
after? Yeah.
I was there just for a short meeting on
yeah.
but I don't know. I just know there was a lot of people around and they were selling shirts, orange shirts like crazy. They may even have sold out. It was that busy up at the Woodland Cultural Center yesterday, yes. And then they're gathering in Ashwegan today at the Vets Park, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Around 10 something. So I couldn't make that one, but I'll get up to the one in Brantford.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's this huge awareness right now, and it has a lot to do with finding those graves, and there's more that's going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are really understanding. They are really beginning to understand how horrific some of these places could have been for children. You know, there's many survivors.
I think about like how are these families reacting now that have lost children, that had their children not come home. And to find that they have all these graves now, and to think, how are they going to identify these kids? Like,
I think that's
where they came from and everything.
Yeah, it's going to be a lengthy process, I think, because it's like each one, right? Each person, each of the children they find has to be located. The relatives have to be located. So that is a really a longer process. But I'm glad we're where we are right now, because it's what residential school survivors have been saying for a long time, that children died in these schools. And now people are understanding that we are telling the truth. It has happened. And I'm not sure when we're going to begin the search at the Mushhole site, but that's going to happen. That's going to happen. You know, it's just a matter of
parks going. How is Mohawk Park?
The Mohawk Park, well, see, that's part of, when the what we're asking for is part of that money, because the money that's going to be not donated, the government is putting, I think there's provincial dollars, there's federal dollars. Part of the dollars, the 10 million, is for commemoration. We're asking for a good chunk of that, and we should, is that we shouldn't have to wait another 10 years to have this park. This park is a very important piece of commemoration. How do we remember the events in history that has happened to residential school kids, to Indigenous children across this country? Not only Indigenous children, who was impacted by it? The parents, all the families, whole communities. So this park really is an important piece that will be something that survivors can give, that we can put our footprint here and say, we want to remember. We want people to understand that there was something that happened in Canada that needs to be remembered. And it's all about the children. Honor the memory of the children. Find out what happened. And that's part of the education too. It's a big key part is educating yourself, finding the answers, finding out what happened. So there's a long history there. So it's slow, but we're hoping that we can get some money out of that. We've asked. We'll see.
Yeah. You have the building up at the Mohawk Park. How is that being used now?
Not right now, because it's not, with COVID, everything was shut down. We were hoping that we could have a lot more done. And it's really hard when you're putting out applications for funding too, because you're competing with hundreds and hundreds of other people. So it's just a slow bit by bit. You might get something done this year, one piece of it. You might not. Hopefully we can use it soon. We're waiting for a few more, but these dollars would help. That would be a really good gathering place there right now. Yeah. It really would. There's the big circle there, the pavilion, and if we can get it all fixed up, it would be it would be a huge opportunity for all of us to gather. It would be a nice place to gather, As I said, as a child, I just remember playing in that one spot. It was a good place to be, outdoors. You're out in nature. It was a beautiful spot for me. As a kid. Yeah. And so it has a lot of good memories. They're not all
Did that
bad.
part go into the playground area, or was it all just an orchard?
What was your question?
The park, how it's located, does it go into the orchard part, or does it go into the playground also?
It starts from Mohawk Street.
Yeah.
You know where the old school used to be down there? Do you remember the old school? No, okay. There used to be a school at the end of the laneway, and Reverend Boyce had a house down there. So it's all that one. It's 5 acres, starting from Mohawk Street, so many feet in from the road, right? Yeah. So you go straight up through where the orchard was, and it goes to the back behind the girls' side. That's where the tiered seating fire pit is going to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it swings all the way around to the back.
Oh,
so
right.
There's like many different features in there. So it's just a matter of getting the money. What we need, like it's really difficult when you're doing it bit by bit. That's probably the wrong way to do it, but try get some money. You know, you need a good chunk of money to get it going and to get it, you know. The more you invest in it, the more people, I think, the more some of the funders look at you too, say, how much have you invested yourself? We've got quite a bit invested in this right now. Yeah. It's not cheap. Even to put up that pavilion was pretty costly, and it's not finished yet. So
yeah. I think what's interesting is when each, like in generations, how when we talk, there's a lot of changes that had gone on even within in the residential school, and to hear different people speak from different eras when they were there, it gives people more of an understanding that that stuff was still happening no matter what. But sometimes maybe the food conditions or were better at the end instead of how they were like in the when I listened to some of the ones that went there in the 40s. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, I think that food is one of the things that was a big difference, and yet there was food that was grown there. There was cattle, there was chickens. You know, everyone should have. What's that?
They had a farm there.
That's right. So why were children going hungry? You know, and that's one of the realities of residential school is that they use those sale of vegetables, sale of the milk to help offset their budget at the expense of children's well-being and health. So that's not acceptable either. But I think they were looking at it anyway. Like I think Zimmerman was looking at it when I look at some of the government documents. Is that he was told even. It took him probably close 7 to 10 years before he would actually do what they told him to do. He said, stop. The recommendation was stop feeding the children unpasteurized milk. Well, that went on for quite a few years because, you know, you can get sick from that.
Yeah.
It took them that long to change those rules. Now, why, I don't know, other than I think maybe that's when we got the powdered milk. Maybe he was listening then. Because if you remember, I don't know if you guys got the powdered milk, but at one time we got powdered milk.
Yeah.
And then before that, I remember some of the girls taking the cream. They got the cream from the guys. They got it from the whoever was milking the cows would pass some cream in for us little ones and hide it in our cups so that we could have it for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just little things like that. But you look at.
I think there's a lot more information coming out, like data. Like when they even talked about how Zimmerman never reported any sickness or any health issues. Oh, everything's fine here. And then to have nothing in writing at all.
Oh, yeah. And we had a nurse on staff, too. So where's all those records?
Yeah. You know, like what was her, if there was no sickness, why was there a nurse? But she was there all those years.
She was there when I was there. And I know she was there when you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's under the federal government. So there are records, even though you never see them. And when I went looking for my records, they said, "Oh no, we had permission from the government to destroy them." I gotta step away just for a sec here.
Oh, okay.
Keep going there.
All right. So have you been up to the park to see the park?
No, not for a while.
Construction?
Not for a while.
I think that would be interesting to go up there later and then check out all the stuff that was done with the park.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been working hard for a few years to try to get that park underway. So, and have a committee for it and everything. But you sit on the committee for it, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't gone to a meeting. Got to catch up with meetings.
Yeah, but there was a lot of fundraising and stuff going on when you were doing it.
Sorry. I'm back.
I was telling Bev she was on the committee for the park and how much work that was being done to try to hurry up and get some construction done with the park.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of background work that was done prior to the park getting started, and the people working at it all the time.
Yeah, it's a big job. It takes a lot of work. But we are persistent.
Yeah, that's good though.
We are persistent, and we're not giving up that easy, or else we wouldn't be here today. But Bev and Darlene, you're very strong. You're very strong, very persistent. You know what you want to get done, and don't let people dissuade you. You have to stand by what you believe in.
Yeah,
and I believe this park will be an important part of history.
Yeah. I think what's interesting though too is people think that the ones that went to residential school are long gone already, and here we are still talking about it because we were there. So
yeah, and I was.
My mother was there too.
And I have to ask you if you're interested in having another large gathering. We're all getting older. I was talking to a couple of fellows that were there when I was at the Mush Hole, and they really would like to gather again. And so
it's been a few years now, though. So
what's that?
It says it's been a few years because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that because we're all aging, and there's so many survivors that that are not around anymore, but we still have voices that we haven't heard from. And that's what I would like. It's like to gather in friendship and, just to talk about things and see where we're going from here. But I'll know in the next couple of weeks what we're doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Because I've talked to them. I haven't seen them in a long time.
I plan on going back in September, but right now I have some time to spend with my grandson. So that's going well for me. So that's why I have time to do a little bit of stuff that I find I get busy with, even just raising my grandchild. So if there's any things that you might need help with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll know, like I said, I'll know in the next week what we're doing, what direction we're going. But I would like to have another really big gathering, and especially from the northern communities, from any First Nation that had kids at the Mush Hole. That would be awesome if we could visit again or bring them together.
Yeah. That was good hearing all the stories, because even the ones, not just the Woodland Cultural Center, but the ones when we went up to Sault Ste. Marie and hearing about all the different schools and their experiences and how very similar everybody's stories are.
Yeah.
And then all the changes that went through them in their time too.
Well, ladies,
go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, we have space here too now, right off the 401. So, we talked about that too, Roberta. We want people to get to where they want to go in the Mush Hole, but everyone is listening now, right? And everyone is awakening to the need to gather these very important voices. And so, I think that we'll just keep doing what we're doing and really making the space for you to get what it is you need for the healing of our elders. We really appreciate you here. This beautiful woman just showed up and she wanted to say hi. So we're going to step out and let you guys do your thing. And it's really great to have you with us today, Darlene, Beverly, and Roberta. As always, you're amazing.
Thank you. I think it's really important, even for our communities, when you think of how far we've come since residential school survivors, even within a community, there's certainly a greater understanding and awareness of why we're in the situation sometimes that we're in, especially within your own families. And it's not to link, at relatives or anything like that. Those were like circumstances that was beyond any child's, control, what happened to a child. But think of the things that they learned when all of those years you're in the Mush Hole or any residential, those should have been really good, important learning years. We should have been learning a lot of good things about your community's culture, the language, all of those things that should have been taught, so there's a huge loss.
Yeah.
Huge
When
devastation.
stuff on residential school came out in about '89, and the kids started getting a little awareness in the schools, and then it got a little bit, so it expanded more. But I know when my grandchildren talked about residential school, they came back and they were talking about it. But I had never told my kids, or I never told my grandkids about my experience at residential school. I just kind of just left it. And then when it started coming up, then I started talking about it. But I wouldn't have talked about it just to say, oh, just talk about it. Like, where'd you go to school? That's all. So did your kids know you had gone to the residential school?
No.
No?
I'm another one of those ones that keep secrets pretty good. And I think it was mostly, it was one of those situations where you have to talk about yourself. That's a hard thing to do when there's trauma involved. You know, it's just not an easy thing to do, because then you have to start explaining and talking about, okay, maybe I wasn't the best mother, maybe I did this wrong. You're looking at the guilt on yourself as a parent.
Yeah.
At least I did. I felt a lot of guilt, so it was really difficult to talk about it to my children. They didn't know they were growing up. I had grandchildren by the time I start talking about things.
Yeah. With my oldest son, he said, Mom, it sounds like you were in prison, because we had rules for everything. When we got out, when we ate, and where we went, there was rules for everything.
Accountability.
Yeah.
What they say in it.
Well, I said it is more like a jail. And I said the only thing missing was the electric fences, and I wasn't. I don't remember being afraid of being locked in, but I knew that we were very much confined to the playground.
You had limits,
Yeah, so you already knew that. You didn't need to tell us or put up a fence. We knew that there was punishment if you stepped over the line into the orchard, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at it with prison. They didn't use our name. We were numbers.
Yeah. And that's the inhumanity, as if they wanted to degrade you, they certainly could. It was like I said, it was more of a regimented, more of a military style. You had to learn the rules, and you had to know when you break the rules, there's punishment. So I think we all learned that one. We learned it pretty good too.
Yeah. I remember talking to one person, and they talked about their experience they haven't yet talked about their experience at residential school, but all they said was, when I was there, I missed my mom. And they still, they're in their 60s and their mid 60s, and they're still talking about, I miss my mom. And their mom is right there sitting beside them, but they still miss their mom.
But I can address that experience myself, because I'm 70. I still talk about mom. I still have that little me.
Yeah.
Lost that. So you actually, as children, that's one of the more devastating things. I mean, there's a lot of devastating things with residential school, but one of the big things is that nobody ever addressed the loss and the separation of child and parent. They just didn't. And so you're left to deal with all of that hurt and all that trauma that is psychological, emotional trauma. You're left to deal with it as a kid by yourself. And what do? Yeah. You can't go to the staff and cry and whatnot, because maybe you guys knew something more about this later on, but I don't ever remember anybody offering help or counseling. I don't think it existed there.
No.
If they did, they didn't offer it to me. No?
Yeah. I think that's one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot. They talk about, okay, when you talk about your experience at residential school, talk about what happened when you were at residential school, but they don't say, okay, what was it like to be separated from your mom or your siblings that were still at home? And then they go back home and try to have a connection with them, when sometimes it was lost, or if there was even the ones that had their language, you hear of them saying, I couldn't even talk to them after, because they lost their language, and the people and the ones at home still had their language. So
yeah, it was a very real problem, but nobody wanted to address it. It was part of the they needed to separate you, and what better way, right? Is to take your language away so that you would forever be changed. And that was what it was all about, assimilation, right?
Yeah.
So that you couldn't identify as the person that you were born to be, where you're going to identify as more European, settler Canadian type things.
Yeah.
Those things.
I think one of the questions I get nowadays is, how do you feel against the churches? And I said, I'm not blaming the churches today. I said, the churches are about having some sort of belief in a greater being. So people have to have that, whether it's in creator, whether it's in a God, or whether it's in whatever they're seeking. And I wouldn't say nobody should have that. But there has to be that recognition that there was that harm that was done, and it was through the government and the churches. But that doesn't mean that we blame the people that are in church now, or even the people the residential school survivors that decided to take that route and seek their comfort in the Lord, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that has.
Yeah, I don't have anything against anyone.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't have anything against anybody going to church following whatever faith they want. That was never my issue. My issue is the residential schools were run by church officials and government at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so you can't blame the congregation unless they were part of it. I would always say Canadians didn't know this. They wouldn't have known. How could they be a part of it? They didn't even know about it mostly. It's the higher officials. The church had something. They understood what they were doing. But I can almost guarantee you they're not telling their congregation what they're doing, And I don't think the congregation at any church would be accepting of this type of behavior and these kinds of things that were done against little children. I just can't believe that one. So I do hold the churches accountable, but more at that higher administrative level, where Zimmerman was a minister, but he was also the administrator of the school. So he should have been held accountable, but never was, because he's passed away. Yeah. What about you, Beth?
It's good that more people are talking now too. Mm-hmm. It's more public.
Yeah, and it's to me it helps. It helps me. I think it helps the children, like my children. They're adults. The children to understand who you are as parents. They don't want to lay blame or guilt on you. They just want a better understanding of why you behaved the way you did.
Yeah.
At least the way I see it is they're not there to hurt you. And maybe some it may be that there may not be any repair in those relationships. I don't know. I'm sure there's some out there. It's very difficult, but like I said, it goes back to how we teach our children. It really does. Those early years are so important on how you shape and what you're teaching your children to be good, to be decent human beings. They learn their values, their norms, all of those things, rules, regulations, but they should be learning in a good way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think a basis of any culture is teaching that respect. And I think that's what we should all be encouraging, is to have that respect for each other, despite race and religion.
Yeah. I think so.
We're all, like, if we look at our DNA, or if anybody has had their DNA done, nobody is pure, like, okay, you're 100% native. There's always something else added in there. I always thought, okay, I have a lot of native in me, and I don't remember a lot of non-natives being intermixed there, but I didn't have any control over way back up here where my great grandparents were, and then to have one person in there that's European, and then it affected the whole line. So we're not all just native. We're a little bit of everything else, and we should have that respect for, looking at this is who we are today, and not putting anybody down for. But we should also have the understanding of our own culture too. Like if we say, okay, I've gone and worked with community, and I've learned a lot of cultural teachings, and those help me to help other people in my role today. and help my family. And I'm thankful for all that. But that was something that I had to go search for. And then something that was brought to our community when the residential school kind of like healing started, the wellness and healing. People start getting more aware of, yeah, I want to know all about that. And before there wasn't a lot of teachings. So a lot of things have changed with having that awareness of, okay, let's look at this now. Let's look at what's going on. And I think there's going to be a lot more learning as we go on and from this year forward too, when people start saying, oh, wow, there was a lot of stuff that went on and people were treated horrifically. I think I was reading in one thing, they were talking about even how some of the kids died. Like even just getting pushed down the stairs or getting kicked or getting beaten, and they died. And then they were just gone. So even the impact on the kids that were still there and seen anything, that would have been impactful for them too. And it was like you can't talk about nothing. When you were at the residential school, when you go home, it's like, don't talk about whatever happened here. So then nobody does. And then they're all scared. But we don't have to be scared anymore.
It's true. It is a way of controlling people when you put the fear into them. And a lot of the kids knew that even if they went home for the summer, they were coming back for the next year. So there was that part of it. But I was from that small group, maybe 40 or 50, whatever it was, that never went home for the years that I was there. We just didn't have any place to go. But one of the good things was they sent us to Christian Island. I don't know if you guys went to Christian Island, but we did. Mm-hmm. It was camping for over a month, about a month, maybe a little over a month, but it was camping on Christian Island, other First Nations, right? It was awesome. You got to be a real kid. You could go on hikes around the island with your little, we had a camp counselor kind of a person, so those were good things, good memories there. And swimming every day. It was just like a kid's paradise, really. So that part, that part was good, and it's just all of the things that when you return, you're returning to the same spot, the same level.
I think as kids, we don't think about we wouldn't say like bad stuff or the stuff that hurt us. We never thought about it. So I remember somebody asking me like when the wellness strategy started, what was residential school like for you? I said, it wasn't bad. And they said, think about it. Like, think about how it really impacted you. And then I thought about, okay, not having our siblings around or not even being able to get to know them. You could have dinner with them like on a Sunday, but like nobody really talked. Like you just sit and eat. Okay, you sit and eat, look at each other, smile at each other. Then you're, okay, that's done now. You got to go to next week. So there wasn't really an awareness or a getting to know each other. What do you like? What do you like? I don't know. So, and then knowing that my mom would visit, but we were lucky that our mom did come visit. Like our mom was poor and people talk, oh, your mom was poor and stuff. But my mom came to visit us. And my mom probably was one of few people that did come and visit their kids. And then she ended up coming, and then sometimes she would take our relatives too. Kids that were still related to us. And so even being poor, she put out a lot of kindness to everybody and helped those other kids too, so that they felt like, okay, we're not just stuck here. So, and then looking at, okay, that even by the time we got out of school, like we were like 10, we were in foster home, and then we went to like middle school, and then we went to high school. It was almost like, okay, now we're getting just to know ourselves. We didn't really have, I'm not going to say everybody did, didn't have that time to connect with my mom on like a child-mother relationship. And then I was married and gone. And then all of a sudden, she died. And it's like, okay, all that time just went. And I didn't take advantage of it at that time. So then feeling that guilt of not getting to know her. But then that wasn't my fault that I didn't get to know her.
No. No, and those are like I said, each decade there seemed to change a lot, because you talked about at least having at least one day a week to sit with your family or your brother or something, right? Did you get to visit with your brother? Yeah, see, we didn't. We didn't. They didn't let you do that. So I think they were understanding a little bit more towards the end, and they were a little bit more lenient with some things. But I never can understand the brutality of the place. I think, you know, all the straps and the beatings or whatever the guys were getting. And it seemed to be that the boys took a greater degree of punishment. And I don't understand. I can't think of what any kid would have done to deserve what they got. I really don't. I don't understand that part of it, because most children, if you sit down with them and talk to them and listen to them and explain, let them talk about why they did what they did. And an adult say, well, you know, talk to them about whatever they did, they shouldn't have done. There was never any of that. It just seemed to be so heavy-handed and brutal, you know. So that I just never understood that part of it and why they had to. But that's part of the, I guess, you know,
I think there's
they
a
had
lot of
control
fight
that you
for yourself.
Take
Fight
off
for
or stray or whatever.
fight against anybody else. And then if you didn't fight, then you became, okay, just don't bother with anybody.
What's that?
I said, but there was that mentality of that you had to fight to do anything or be anything there. And then if you didn't fight, then you kind of stood in the shadows and said, I'm not going to do nothing because I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. But if you start getting the strap because you were fighting, and it was like, I'm going to get the strap anyway, so I'm going to fight. And it was kind of like a vicious circle, because you're kind of like damned if you do and you're damned if you don't either. So
I think that's the culture of the whole thing, though, is that you had to be tough. It's like a little jail, right? Only the strong survive type thing. So even when you're little and you're first in there, I can remember the older girls saying those things, as you got to tough it out. You got to be tough. You got to tough it out. You know, that's when you're lining up for a strap. Basically, don't cry. Don't show them that they can hurt you. Just tough it out. Yeah. Those were lasting words in my brain. You know, as a little kid trying to tough it out. Yeah. But that's the way it was. And I know, like, you talked about going to foster care, and it's where a lot of kids went after residential school. We ended up in foster care, away from home, far away from your family. You know, I did anyway. I didn't have foster care on reserve, even though my brothers and sisters were fostered. 3 of the younger ones were fostered, and then my brother was fostered on the reserve at Six Nations. But Dawn and I, we went to Durham County, and when we went to Durham County, there was 3 mush hole boys in that same foster. I knew them from the mush hole.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I knew them from mush hole, but they didn't stay there that long. And then we moved place, and then we had another girl came in after us, and then 2 of the other girls came in. So we had a total of 9, not all together, but there was always a total of 9 that went through that one foster home. And I knew them all from the mush hole.
Oh, wow.
So it was. And that probably was the beginning of the 60s scoop, moving them around. And I found out years later, I think those guys, I thought they were sent back to the mush hole, and I think they weren't. They were sent to another foster home around in Durham County somewhere. So they were fostering a lot of kids out at that time. But at least I knew them.
Yeah.
we had our friends back from the mush hole.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So that was fun. Difficult years, but still interesting. But yeah, here we are today, still discussing this and still living through the residential school era. And I think it's, to me, we've made a lot of progress. You know, there's a lot of awareness out there.
Yeah.
People have more understanding. So these are good things. These are good things. Still now with this new, with the remains of children or whatever, you know, could be some adults, but the remains of children being found, that just opens up a whole other door there, you know?
Yeah.
And we're not done yet. We're just not done. So whenever they start up here, you know, they're going to start at Six Nations doing all the searching too. It's not going to be left unsearched. Let's put it that way. It's in the works, It's in the
Yeah.
works.
Do you know where the mush hole was before? Like the initial building? That's what he said.
Apparently
It was up near the
church.
chapel.
Yeah, and I was talking to Janice up there, and she said it was kind of like in line with the church, maybe diagonal to the church, but that field, I think it's that field that's close to the church. You know, when you go around Mohawk Street and it goes around the chapel, it'll be on that field. Not in the church side, it's on that field opposite there. I think that's one of them that there's a lot that they have to search. It's not just that spot. And they did have another school, but that's really the old one. So I think it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of searching. Here.
It's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot
of what?
Research being done on where things were, and even where the barn was, or wherever anything was. Where could they hide things?
Oh yeah, I've heard so many different stories over the years about things that, like, to me, it shocks me that I hear all these things and I said, geez, how come I didn't know about this? But I was just a little kid. Why would I know? Why would I know? But the older girls, the ones who stayed there the longest, can address some of that. Same with the men. They were there as older kids. They know, they've seen things. And so we're going to have to address all of those things. And you know what? If there's nothing there, that's great. That's really good.
Yeah.
But, given the nature of residential schools, I think there's probably something there. I don't think we've got all the answers yet.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot of, I would say, excavation around that. They put in all those burns around the church. You look at the dump that's there. And then the frost on that. There's a whole bunch of things that the grounds have already been disturbed, but we're finding out that, I didn't even know that there was, I never knew, I don't know if you guys did, but did you ever go into the part behind the mush hole?
No.
And neither did I. The boys probably did. I know the boys ventured all over the darn place. There's supposed to be a quicksand pit back there. Did you know that?
I've heard that, but I haven't.
I didn't know that. I didn't know
Maybe
that.
That's what scared us from not going back there. They're saying if you go back there, there's quicksand. So then we're not going back there then.
I never heard that. I've never heard that. So, there's a lot of things that are going to come up pretty darn soon is where we're going to go. But it's a matter of getting everything organized so that you do it in the right way, right? You do the searches in the right way. You can't just go hit and miss, and it has to be done properly. And I think that's what we're working on, Anything else? Bev?
Yeah, you only said nothing.
I want to hear from Bev.
Because there's so much that has to still be uncovered. And now that you're getting more residential school survivors, we're sharing more. Like, everybody knows now. It's not secret.
True.
I think there's still a lot of people that don't know a lot of things. People that live even around the Woodland Cultural Center, a lot of them still don't know. They know there was a school there, but they don't know the impact of the school. So there's a lot of awareness that still has to be done so that people are aware of all the things that happened everywhere. And it's not just local to just one area. Like Woodland Cultural Center, like the mush hole, had kids from all over Ontario, from Quebec. So it's not just localized to if there's kids found, are they from here? They're probably from all over. So, and just like any other residential school.
Yeah, it's a matter of who kept the records, where's the records, every child that went there was admitted and they had a name and they had a number.
Yeah.
So, so there should have been records and they still should have those records, regardless, they should have been kept. But it's going to be, I think, really difficult to get records anymore. It would be surprising It would surprise me if they came up with anything. But still, when your child comes home and they're going to a school, an education facility, and they're told, they tell the parents your child would be looked after. They're going to be well fed. We'll look after your child. And that child never comes home. I mean, there has to be answers. There has to be some explanation for all of this, you know. And I can't, you know, some of them were accidents at the school. There was one little boy, maybe in your time, that ran away, and he got hit on the train tracks running away from them, you know. So those things are accounted for. We don't know about anymore, other than under the TRC. I think under the TRC, there was something like 50-something names that they haven't accounted for at the mush hole.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's what they're finding, but maybe there's more we don't know.
Yeah. And I wonder how many of those schools told families
we went to, and then there was the other school by the church. So we don't know.
They would have told them their child ran, I said they would have told them their child ran away, where their child might have actually died. And then, so then that way it almost takes the onus off the residential school. And here it was, they were harmed there and left there. So
that's just
families didn't even know.
Yeah. And how do you explain? You know, you have to be able to explain. But you know what? When they do all of these investigations, there will be some kind of forensics or whatever it is. They can determine the cause of death. If it's malnutrition, if it's, you know, other things, maybe they'll find more. Who knows? But the thing is, why were children malnourished to the point even that they would die? That indicates a huge problem.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so many components to this residential school stuff and how it's opening up again. You know, we're not done, and that's, but you have to look after the children, right? You have to.
Yeah, it's what's going to help us keep in mind the future children is how do we protect them in like our 7 generations down the road. We're protecting the ones now, and then even gaining that awareness of this is what happened to the families. This is the impact, and this how can we heal from that now? How can we feel better ourselves so we're not carrying all that trauma and all that stuff when it wasn't our fault? It wasn't our fault if we were touched or if we were hit or whatever, or maybe sometimes if we already knew consequences, but depending on how people were hit, a lot of that wasn't our fault. And some people carried that like, okay, I was such a bad person. No, maybe something that you did was bad, but you're not a bad person. So you're looking at how do we encourage our kids in a different way. Like when we were there, there's like, get up, suck it up, move ahead, move on. Instead of saying, okay, let's look at that child and see what happened to that child first. All right, you're all right now. Let's go. Let's move on, move ahead now from that. Like looking at taking care of your own little kids and stuff. So we laugh about it a lot and saying, oh yeah, that kid fell and they hurt himself, and we just said, suck it up, get up, like keep going. But let's take that time to understand what's going on for that kid, so that kid knows that they're recognized and that they've been noticed. So I would hope that people are learning from this, especially in your service providers. I think they have a greater understanding of what they're seeing in our communities. Yeah. I think that really helps. That's opened a lot of eyes in that respect as to why do we have all this violence? Why is there sexual abuse? You know, it's nothing that you should be hiding from. You know, you have to look at why this is happening, you know, and then we can address a lot of issues, you know, if you understand the causes of all these things. So I think that was a really big thing that I think opens people's eyes to how the intergenerational trauma still exists. Yeah. Or I think what I noticed too is sometimes when we have workers that come in, if they're non-native or whatever, and they come into a community that's a native community, and they're going, oh, they've gone through so many trauma, but then that person as a worker takes on that feeling and stuff, and they go, I can't work here because there's so much trauma here. Like, understand what happened, don't take it on, and how are you going to protect yourself? So anybody that encounters or working with people have to know how to take care of themselves, know how to say, okay, you know what, I'm having all these feelings. How do I help myself so I can continue to help the people, the community members, because when they start taking it all on, then they become worn out, and then they start getting sick. So we need to be able to keep encouraging people to take care of themselves. All that self-care. How do we take care of ourselves to do, like, even when we speak, like they talk about, go out and talk about your story, but make sure that you're doing something that you're taking care of yourself. So we all encourage each other to, like, meet, encourage each other, build each other up, so then we can continue to do this storytelling. Because if we didn't do anything to take care of ourselves, we would be like puddles of mush.
Yeah. And I think in the initial stages, it was pretty devastating to even have to talk about it. That was a pretty traumatic experience for me, is to even look back at all of that stuff. It was really getting to the point where it was causing me an awful lot of emotional distress, psychological distress, because I didn't want to look at it, but I had to, because of what it was doing to me. You know, and so that was pretty much the breaking point for me. I had to look after me before I could go forward anymore with it, you know. So that's what I did. Yeah.
And I think that's what some of the programs that are in place are there for, so that we do take care of ourselves.
It's not an easy thing to do, though, to look at yourself, and maybe that some of the things that you did could have caused the harm too, but then you have to look at it realistically. And then, like, as a kid, what were you experiencing? You know, so don't take all the blame on yourself. You know, don't, because there was some pretty bad beginnings for children. You know, and if that's what you're teaching them, you know, don't blame them. It's just that we just didn't. When I think of all the kids who left the bush hole, who are severely traumatized from it, they walk out those doors and nobody helped them. But yet they're walking around and expected to function in society as normal human beings when their life was not normal before that. It was pretty horrific, you know? And so here you got these damaged children, traumatized children, having to go out in the world and find their way in the world. And you know what? If you've seen drugs and alcohol, you see violent behavior. Now I think people will understand that that's how you survived.
Yeah. Well, when you didn't have that nurturing, nurturing there, you had to go out and learn it. And if you didn't go out and learn it, then all you did was just pass on that behavior of, okay, just ignore it and let's keep going. Just ignore it, let's keep going. But when you ignore it, it's not being ignored because it's getting stored in your body somewhere. And then it comes out and then you're like, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, and I think that Indigenous people got labeled a lot as just plain, they just want to drink, you know, your lazy, drunken Indians. There's that stereotypical image. Well, people should look at why. Why are you seeing this in a population? Why are you seeing a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug abuse? Now, maybe people will understand what drove them to those types of things. They are still in pain. And what does alcohol and drugs do? It dulls the pain. They were still walking around in pain. And to this day, there's many still in pain, you know, so don't blame them for what was taught and what was put on them. That's my thing. And it's like, how many kids ended up in jail after that as young adults, juvenile detention, into the prison system? How many people ended up homeless because it was safer maybe on the streets, you know, after residential school? There's a certain population that ended up in either that area or whatever. And there's other people who managed to pick themselves up, move forward. And there's a lot of success in residential school kids, because I think it's just because you're so strong. You two ladies are strong. You know, there's a lot of strength. There's a lot of inner strength there. And you've had to work at it. You've had to do it yourself. You know, there's help along the way. But I think once we recognize things, we can do it. And mine, I was just stubborn. I was just really stubborn, and I had to keep moving and moving forward. And so that's just where I was. I said, I wasn't going to let people defeat me. They're not going to do that to me. I'll prove you wrong. That's me. So I'm going to prove you wrong. If you say I can't do it, I'll tell you I can.
Yeah. Heck with you.
You got it. Yeah. So there's a lot of components to residential school. It's not cut and dried. There's so much involved in how people survived during residential school, but what did they do after and where they are today, you know?
Yeah.
So it's big. It's big, really. It really is. So I'm a compassionate person about human beings. So I don't like people when they say they're just nothing but a, you know, dirty, lazy Indian. Well, you know what? Start thinking about how they got there. You know, what drives a person? What drives a person to sit there and, you know, basically give up and just self-medicate, you know, because of the pain. So, yeah.
And I think for when we talk about healing, when you talk to someone like, okay, let's talk about this, and maybe once you start talking about it, it's not going to hurt as much, or let's do this for self-care, and it's almost like that sounds too simple to just sit back and relax. Oh, go for a walk. Well, I don't want to go for a walk. Well, just go sit by the water. Like, I don't want to go. And it just sounds like it's too simple, but it's something that helps us. Like, even like I tell people sometimes, if you're feeling really frustrated or something, just go to the bathroom, get some wet water or even wet a cloth and put it on your face. You're going to feel amazing when you do that. And it's like, what? Just do it. So then they do it and they go, oh, that did help. So some things just do a little bit.
Yeah. But here we are today, ladies. We're still at it.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Wrong. Yeah.
We are. And it's amazing. It's amazing how we all connect at some point, though, isn't it? You know, we can all meet. We have those common experiences. We have all those experiences as children that we know. We understand each other, you know. We may not like things, but at least I understand where people are coming from, you know. And it shouldn't be for me to judge anybody on what they did in their life, because I didn't walk in their footprints. I mean, their footsteps or their moccasins. I just didn't. So, you know, be a little bit more compassionate and understanding. It goes a long way, you know.
Yeah. So what do you know if they're doing anything at the Woodland Cultural Center at 2?
I haven't heard of anything. I just know that they're meeting there at 12, right? They're going to walk from the Civic Center over.
Their walk's starting like now. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to get down there, but then I think there's going to be something there after.
Yeah, I'm going to be up there, but I probably will miss the walk. By the time I leave here, I'll probably miss the walk, and I'll meet you guys up there if you're going.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we're going to, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you up there, because it's like, what? We got a couple more minutes. What do you want to talk about? Where's that Jody?
It's 12 o'clock.
There's that Jody. Here she comes.
Yeah.
We're just getting ready to out here at Country Heritage Park. We have drummers and some drum group and some jingle dress dancers as well that are going to join us from probably about 2. I know that some of the jingle dress dancers are going to Mohawk, the Mohawk Residential School, and after they're finished, they're going to come to us in Milton. And so that's what we're doing. And of course, we've got, you know, running around outside just trying to get organized, because we don't know how many people will come either. And we're expecting quite a few, but you know, we have the space and everything's going to be outdoors, so that you know, people can come and look at the garden and just be out on the land, and you know, and just be in community together. And that is really, which was really important for us. You know, being you know, my mom is a residential school survivor, and so I certainly understand some of the things that you ladies were talking about, and having that conversation as well with my mom. They were in Saskatchewan, and their residential school was in Manitoba, so they had taken a train from Saskatoon to Manitoba. And every time my mom would hear the whistle of the train, my mom would say the train is the loneliest sound she ever heard. And I never really understood that until I went to her residential school. And it was because the train track was right behind the residential school. So we know that there's lots of experiences. There's people here that have asked certain things, you know, of healing, and that they were residential school survivors as well. They also asked if you ladies still have nightmares. And also, you know, because it is a very traumatic experience, but you also now are, like Roberta said, we're still here. And, you know, you've had, those are experiences that will never, ever, ever, ever go away. But, you know, we are just so honored that you will that you've taken the time to be with us every Thursday from now until the end of September, just to have that space and place for your voices. And, you know, I can't say enough how grateful that we are that, you know, we're here with you, and also trying to raise that awareness of trying to get that park, Mohawk Village Park, built in this lifetime for a lot of the survivors. And Roberta, like you said, like, we still need a place to gather. We want a place to gather that we can come and be together and share our stories. And just like the Legion, and I think you touched on that before, Roberta, as well, is that the Legion has, for the veterans, the Legion has places for the veterans to go. And how come the residential school survivors don't have a place like a Legion? And that's how come it's so important that you get your space, the Mohawk Village Park. And we'll do everything that we can to help. I know our schools at the Halton Catholic District School Board is raising money. They've sent we've raised money too at our department, and I know that we've sent a check to Mohawk Village, and and it's going to continue because people are asking, what can we donate to? And we've said the Mohawk Village Park, because it is all just volunteers that are trying to raise that money, and nothing like the Woodland Culture Center and Save the Evidence is supported by corporations and government, and whereas this is not supported by corporations and government, it's supported by people like you and people like us to do a little tiny little bit to support and making sure that that's a reality for you ladies, because it would be nice to have the park in your lifetime.
It would be. And we are very grateful for the donations. And yes, we did receive a check from there. And it's the Mohawk Village Memorial Park. So let's hopefully support us.
Yes, definitely.
So we can all gather again. We can gather.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be there long after we're gone, and people can still gather and come together in peace, friendship. It'll be a nice place.
Yes, definitely.
It'll be a nice place.
Definitely. Well, I know you ladies have places to go, and that you are busy today as well. Please, my heart is with you. My thoughts are with you. And I know I need to take care of my heart as well today. So please take care of your heart. And we'll rise up, and we'll rise our children and sing them all home today. Miigwech. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.
Oh, that's hard on it, but I think that